Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Carcassonne. So I logged in to my Asamode uh, digital account, which I turned out did have one, although I still had to jump through hoops to remember what it is. And you can see now that there's like 210 people, 209 people online. Hardly a large number of people, frankly. And of the 208, it's jumping around. Seems like there's really only a few that are going to be shown to you. There is also just kind of this generic um, chat, just overall chat that happens. You can friend and I assume even block people, but it is hardly a system where there's a lot of people playing, but it is also shockingly a lot of content that is locked behind giving your email away. For instance, you have a whole profile and a whole karma / ranking system and the whole statistics as far as what you've done in Carcassonne. You can make a specific pick as to what color you want, and then most annoyingly, there is a incredibly large amount of achievements here that don't connect to Steam achievements in any way. And honestly, I feel like I know Valve is pretty hands off on the content they require or don't allow in general on Steam, although there are very specific examples of things they definitely do not allow on Steam. But I would have to say, if there's going to be an achievement in your game, it should connect to the Steam achievement system. Even if that means that buying this game on a cell phone causes those achievements to be double unlocked, I think that is incredibly fair, too. There's multiple ways now you can get to things. I also got the abbot. So, if we can... the one thing that ironically is not here is that even though you have an account and then signed in, it doesn't stop advertising the same things to you. So if you already own Love Letter, for instance, I do, and Ticket to Ride, I do, there's really no reason for them to advertise that to me if they know they've already sold me on those. Okay, so the question is, how do we get to the tutorials? I guess you don't for the abbot, and I guess that's how we want to play. The abbot returned home recently, and his presence will surely enrich the daily lives of those living around the town. He can usually be found with the monks or taking pleasant stroll outdoors to appreciate the scent of flowers. Meeples. Yep, that's white. Not only does he occupy monasteries or gardens, but he also enables you to score points from them even if they're not completed. Rules. Each player receives an abbot in addition to the meeple stockpile. After placing a tile containing a monastery or garden, you may choose to claim either these features with your abbot instead of a regular meeple. Remember that only abbots may occupy a garden. So now there is a reason why there is a garden on the tile, which I wouldn't be surprised if the first run of Carcassonne in the real world did not have gardens, and then they added them later as a concept. Gardens are like monastery. If a monastery or garden is occupied by the abbot is adjacent to 8 tiles, it's worth 9 points. As a special action, even if you choose not to place a meeple on the tile, you may recover your abbot. By doing so, you will score as many points as the monastery or garden is worth at that time, just like you would during final scoring. So I guess the real question is, do we need to turn on just the abbot? Or could we turn on the river? And I guess there's just not enough here to not go ahead and try and get our money's worth and simply have a single game here. I feel like the winter edition, though, definitely is exclusive, so I would assume winter is when they just ran out of ideas for the original launch and winter starts all over again. So yeah, we should just play one game with the abbot on only, one game with the river on only, one with Indian cathedrals on only, one with traders and builders in on only, and one with princess and dragons. And then at some point, we should just turn on everything and see how crazy that game is. And after that, we should then try the winter edition only in the gingerbread man edition, which I guess you have to do that. So you can't play gingerbread man without winter edition also enabled. So it's a little deceptive in the number of options, or inconsistent in the number of options. You could turn off fields. You could turn off the remaining tile list. We could turn off dead tiles. Yeah, we could just turn off everything for a difference here. So now it's saying standard Carcassonne with the abbot and nothing enabled. Of course, these games would be a lot shorter if you played with fewer characters. And there, it is in that case using my Asmodee login, because I couldn't just do Rydo. I had to add of all, which is what I generally do whenever there's a username that requires more text, or it's already been taken, which usually it hasn't, being a random assortment of letters. But seemingly there is no way to change that to a shorter nickname, which kind of stinks. Okay, so I think I want to play this here like that, and then do this, and we can't place an abbot anywhere, so I'll take that, or I'll take that. I think it's probably better to take that. Because what I'm trying to do is make a dead tile around his road. Or at least get the same amount of points as his road. But screwing over one player for a road isn't as useful as you might think it is. Right, so we have 3 here, 3 here. So if I should put it here, and then something like that. Yeah, I guess. And then we'll put the abbot there. You have to click on the abbot, which I guess that implies at some point there might be a full-on point where you'll have multiple options of different kinds of meeples to play. Right, do we want to close anything else off? Not really. I think this probably works the best. I don't think we can even place anything, so just have to end the turn there. I could put the abbot, unless I could have picked up the abbot and placed him on this flower bed. There's definitely a lot of zooming and in and out that ideally you would want to see. Yeah, I think I can just like pick this guy up for 7 now. What else would I want to do? If I place this here, that's a pretty good place to place it. Because that is an immediate score. Of course, I also just gave 9 to that character. I think 6 players might be a little too many, generally speaking. It does kind of feel like it's a little exhaustive when you might do better with 4 players. I'm gonna go ahead and put a meeple there. Like, if you play with 2 players, it's too obvious and too easy to just focus on the other player as your opponent and block all of their moves. If you play with 3 players, it's still a little too obvious and too easy to realize that you can screw over the other 2 players. But once you get to about 4, the multiple possibilities, I think, gets wide enough and variable enough that that works. But then once you start to get above 5, I would say it gets too complicated, and then there's just too many actions taking place in between each of your actions, so you're not directly reacting to anything. Like, I am basically completely ignoring the actions of all 5 of the other players and then not even paying attention until it's my turn again. That doesn't really work as a concept. I guess again we'll place that there. We're sitting around trying to make this match, and I don't think there is a way to match. We probably shouldn't have turned off dead tiles. I want this guy back. How do I get this guy back? Left click, right click seems to not do anything. Is there some way here we could get a road that would work for us? Here. 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 Yeah, make dead tiles. That way. And I have some meeples to waste, so I might as well take them. Building this big city, I think, has potentially set so many people ahead of me that I've probably just been put in the last position. Yeah. Everybody else is at like 28 and I'm at 8. I don't know if there's any way that you could recover from that. If there is a way to do it, it's going to be getting incredibly lucky. All right. Take that 8. I don't feel like any of the other players are really playing the abbot either. So, almost feels like I have this unfair advantage where I can play the abbot and nobody else can. Unless they've figured something out that I haven't figured out. Yeah, and I don't think there's a case where these scores are going to get higher if I had left the abbot where he was. Or you get double scores, potentially. What are we playing for here? Is there anything particularly beneficial? Nope, I'm just gonna put that there. Hit OK. And then I'm gonna take this abbot back again. And hope I can catch up by using the abbot. Yeah, it just feels like the AI is not programmed to know how to use the abbot. After they've gotten your email, and they'll give you something that is kind of half finished. That's what it feels like they've done as a trick. Well, if I did this, and then put a meeple here. Yeah, none of the other players seem to use the abbot at all. And so we'll watch the scoring. As it seemed to pick the things that scored least first. That would be my guess as to how this goes. And I was just so far behind that it does definitely feel like there's not a high chance that I would win here. Like, not only would every other player have to score incredibly low, but I would have to get incredibly lucky. There is a point to mention here that Carcassonne really has no strategy as far as holding back the meeple. You have enough to place one always. The only slight strategy would be where you place it, and in many cases you only have one, maybe two options. So it's really not that much of a strategy game. It's much more random luck. Which, that's fine. It's totally fine if you want your game to be random luck. It's just you don't create a game like chess that's been played for hundreds, if not thousands of years on the backbone of a random luck experience. So I'm way at the bottom, doing poorly in roads, did decent in monasteries. Apparently somebody did play on the gardens, and I just didn't notice it. 2 people did. And then doing incredibly poorly on cities. And so with that, I don't think there's a single achievement that was done here. Yeah, I just don't really see, like, I don't think there's enough here to potentially make you want to play the game more just because of these in-game achievements. That seems like a mediocre motivator. But since that was short, just sticking with the same build, let's then integrate the river and take out the abbot, and let's see, try this idyllic starting tile set for varied opening plays and opportunities to expand your territory along the river. More scoring options with gardens and monasteries. But actually that's a weirdly different description than this over here. The river is an alternate starting tile set that gives players more opening plays and opportunities to expand their territory right at the start of the match. Rules: at the beginning of the match, each player draws a tile from the special river tile stack. This will form a river running through Carcassonne. Players are free to place a meeple on their river tile just as they would on any other regular tile. When the river tile stack is empty, the player draws from the usual base game tile stack and the match continues. I think arguably you probably would want to play the river tile set first, but the way they're potentially sold is that you have to buy the classic set, then buy the expansion, the river. And if I'm understanding this right, might as well just turn that on. You very possibly have to complete the river first before you can do anything else. So it's a whole secondary game that you play before you play the main game. And the audio kind of has a running water sound, which arguably might be somewhat objectionable. Take note that you really are limited in the number of things you can play as far as options, because it has to connect the river. Most societies are somewhat usually based around water sources, so it's not agriculturally wrong to being somewhat near a river, although arguably you don't need to be directly near a river where it would flood and destroy your house. But if you're, say, 500 miles from a river, you're also not going to be able to grow crops or anything like that. So now that the river tiles are played, you have considerably more options. So it really will just come down to what can we do. With the abbot not being used, the gardens are pointless tiles. Do we have an ending here? We can play, yes, but there's definitely a chance that this turns into a dead tile. There's clearly some level of desire to make Carcassonne as a game, make each round last a little bit longer. Otherwise, this river expansion wouldn't really make that much sense. Although it is also very possible that it doesn't have to really make that much sense to the player base as long as they can convince people to buy them at like toy stores, buy the expansions at toy stores. Which, in a lot of ways, I wouldn't be surprised if most board games are designed to just be an impulse buy at a toy store, or often just a regular supermarket or even grocery store, instead of being targeted to people who would actually have a level of understanding as to what the product is, or would actually do the research to figure out what the product is. Most board games like Monopoly are definitely not targeting a sophisticated, informed consumer, instead targeting a parent or just fairly cheap consumer. Can I not spin that any other way? Guess I can't, but that is a gamble to take, putting a monastery there. Digital, in my opinion, is totally the way to go with these kinds of board games, but it would be nice if there was some kind of, I don't know, way to bring it into the real world, because board games tend to be for younger players anyways. I just am not certain that there really is a solution there. Could play that. That'll get us some points. Yeah. Like, ideally you would buy the physical board games. You'd go and buy Monopoly in a store. You'd pay $10 for what is probably about $1.25 worth of cardboard and plastic. And it would come with a digital code to play on cell phones and on Steam and PCs. And ideally, those digital codes would be like a family pass of at least 4 players. Being able to download and play it at least together in one group. Maybe you have to pay some kind of DLC extra if you want to play with a different group. But even that seems a little greedy, because board games really are something that have diminishing value with every second that passes. There's not a real reason why they shouldn't be mostly free. If you go to a library, you can definitely rent out board games in most public libraries at this point for free. And so that is really where their value is. But then there is also some weirdness in taking up physical shelf space for an infrequently sold product, and a product that's not even that necessary. Yeah, I hope that was worth it for me. think it was. There are definitely some components that could be more generic for a lot of Hasbro style board games and board games in general here. Like these meeple and these little people characters are not different than any other token that you would use in Monopoly or any other game. So if you maybe put some more value into the meeple and the characters, if you need a small number of characters, that you could probably sell that as an individual component that could be used in multiple board games. At a certain level, each meeple could be replaced with a small imp creature from a Warhammer set or Dungeons and Dragons or Hero Quest set. I guess would be closer, not Dungeons and Dragons, because Dungeons and Dragons doesn't really have that many character figurines. You could get points here. Question is, where do I want to get points? I guess I could connect there. Some of my actions here are definitely giving the opponents points as much as they're giving me points. And while there is an achievement for getting over 100 points, generally you just want to win. Yeah. No, you really wouldn't go Warhammer, Imps, or anything like that. You would have the meeple just be pawns from a chessboard. Like, you really don't need meeple to exist. They could be pawns from a chessboard. These tiles could be the same size as a chessboard, and then you could flip them potentially over, or put them in a sleeve to turn them into black and white tiles. There are quite a few older board games that work that way. Chess, checkers, all of them work on the same board because there has been this unification there, and there really is no extra value in separating out games and game pieces, particularly in ancient times when people were probably making their own chess sets and chess pieces, or it was a significant purchase instead of now people potentially trying to nickel and dime you, which is, Hasbro is incredibly greedy and does try to nickel and dime its consumers and rip them off. They make very cheap board games designed to fall apart and lose pieces fairly quickly. And with the internet as it is today, it probably is very, very easy to print out these tiles on paper. A little bit more difficult to print out this tile sets on, say, cardboard and make it look real good. Not incredibly difficult, however, to potentially have something like these tile sets and be 3D printed or laser cut into a thin piece of wood and make your own custom version of it. And there was a brief moment there where that was the idea for, I believe, Toys R Us, right before Toys R Us went out of business, is they were going to push the idea of having 3D printers and people coming in and ordering a 3D print of basically anything, but toys would be a really good concept there. I'm not sure that they aren't still trying to do that in some select office stores in the United States. where you could bring in something to 3D print in an office store. And if you can't do it in a local store that you can walk in, you certainly can order 3D prints from sites like, I guess Shapeways would be one of them. Yeah. So, yeah. You can definitely have mail-ordered 3D printed things done with very high-quality 3D printers and get a much higher level of quality for plastic pieces like this. And you can 3D print tiles that would have potentially some bumps in it and or just look as good and still be flat. Like, you could definitely like 3D print each of these tiles, put some bumps and grooves in it, and then have a layer of like clear epoxy on top of it. Although that might be very expensive. You could definitely get a very fancy set made that way, and a very custom set too. Or you could just have the cheaper basic option. It wouldn't be insane to have a mail order only business for board games. And in a lot of ways, pretty much anything at a comic book shop, whether it's board games, Dungeons and Dragons, or cards, almost all of that could be just mailed instead of having an actual physical presence, but it creates a place where people can hang out with each other. But yeah, I could see we've unlocked the welcome wagon, which we'll have to check to see what that is. I could see a scenario where all Hasbro games have to be mail ordered. I could see a scenario where you pay, let's say $15 a month, and every month a new board game comes to your house, or perhaps a new expansion on a board game comes to your house for over the course of a year. I could see there almost certainly exists somewhere out there trading groups where people would just mail their old board games to new families once they get bored with them, because that's inevitably what happens with these board games. Is either you lose pieces and you stop, or you just get bored and stop playing with them, or you give them away. So you might as well give them away. So I did really well with roads, and then pretty good, relatively speaking, with monasteries, but not as good as this guy, and then pretty poorly with cities, which put me in about the middle spot. And so we defeated one focused AI, apparently, which I guess means the way you're going to accomplish this is that you just have to be better than that person. You don't have to particularly win the game. So since I feel like the whole game is heavily randomization based, defeating 20 aggressive AIs is probably not that hard, because you could just play a couple of games, I'd say 7 or 8 games against all aggressive AIs, and you would probably end up in the middle and defeat 3 or 4 of them every time. But then you have add 10 players to your friends list, which means if you want to get the achievements, you have to just randomly friend people. The odds of you actually knowing 10 people playing this game when there's only 200 people online is very low. Win on 1 online match, win 15 public matches, win 45 public matches, win 60 public matches, place a meeple on the field 35 times, which would definitely mean you have to play that rule set, even if you don't like that rule set. Complete 40 cities, complete 75 roads, complete 20 monasteries. Win a match against 5 aggressive AIs. That seems like that's a more difficult challenge. Complete a road of at least 7 tiles, complete a city of at least 10 tiles. Place the abbot in a garden 8 times. Some of these, or specifically this one, we've made some progress to, but the rest we really haven't. Earn at least 120 points, complete a city with more meeples than an opponent that occupies the same city. Play the river expansion 3 times, we've done that. Complete a city with a cathedral, complete a city with an inn, complete a city with 2 cathedrals, complete a city with a coat of arms 5 times. These expansion DLC achievements, I imagine, are separated because the game changes a little bit more significantly. Play 50 double turns. Having double turns seems like that would really change how you're playing. Score 10 points when the wine goods. Score the 10 points attributed to the wine goods 5 times. Score the 10 points attributed to the cloth goods 5 times. Score the 10 points attributed to the grain goods 5 times. And score all 3 goods types in the same game. So, yeah. That sounds like a very different style of gameplay. Eat 5 meeple while you're moving a dragon. Feed 3 meeples to the dragon. Move the fairy 5 times. Earn 5 points from the fairy who is starting the round next to your meeple. Earn 9 points from the fairy from being inside a city when it gets closed. Teleport 3 meeples using a magic portal. Remove 5 enemy meeples from cities using the princess. Close a city and gain dominance by removing the opponent's meeples using the princess. That definitely sounds very different. No way you're going to get these achievements without playing those specific expansions. Complete the city with the gingerbread man. Move the gingerbread man 25 times. Score 10 points when the gingerbread man leaves. Score 20 points when the gingerbread man leaves. And score points when the gingerbread man with at least 3 knights. Alright. So that wasn't that long. And yeah. I think we'll just leave the order in the group here as it is. Like, there's maybe a small argument to getting rid of this character, maybe a small argument for making them all AI focused once and making them all builders later, but I think this just works fine. So let's try the abbot and the river, and while we're at it, we'll turn fields back on and see. This is a particularly wide bar, so you can have all the expansions enabled. I have to say, and this is my own personal stupidity or forgetfulness, since the tutorial had us play as a blue character, switching over to red as my color was a mistake. Yeah. There's really no way around that. That was just a straight up mistake. Alright. It's going to lead to some confusion. I feel like you put one on the field now. But since I have a different option with the road, I'll do the road first. But I feel like the river expansion does potentially open up to picking one side of the river being the majority of where a field would be. Because yeah, this whole area will probably come down this way, would be my guess. Meanwhile, we could get another road. Down this direction. Yeah. It's just all kinds of different places you can place it. Theoretically, there could be 9 different places you could place it. I could also see there being a 9-sided dice roll. If you added a 9-sided dice, that would have the characters, like the fairy, potentially move north, south, east, west based on that dice roll. And that you could just do a 4-sided dice and then re-roll on a 5 or a 6, or take your pick. Not a single one of those, however, does connect back to the abbot. I guess the question we should test out is, if we removed one character, would we start with fewer cards? Because that would be a slight different scenario if it was the case. Gonna try for a hostile takeover here. Like, ideally I would get rid of this character and this character and have a leisurely game of 4 characters. Alright. Is this gonna touch anything, or does the river block everything? I totally assume that you are going around this way and this way. So if you aren't getting blocked off by something else, which I guess you are, well, we shall see what happens there, I guess. This isn't quite a dead end. Alright, put the abbot there. It may just be that it's a lot harder to use the abbot than I realized, because I was able to place him fairly early in the last time I played him, and then did not notice all the other times it wasn't possible to play him. Okay. Is there something else I should focus on? Do I want to take this guy back? Guess I have no choice because I clicked on it. I just wanted to see its area of influence. Feels like there should have been a checkbox there. Right. Put one there, unless I can place an abbot. I guess I can't. What does this do? Oh, this highlights all of the fields and who owns what and where, which is really informative but very visually busy too. It feels like it would be nice if this just kind of slowly faded in every now and then faded out, or faded in when you hovered over something and then faded out. Place that. Put that abbot there. I definitely feel like it's kind of hard to pay attention to this game, being so zoomed out. I really feel like the camera should be swooping in and then zooming out. I don't want to potentially encourage motion sickness induction in players, but I just don't see how you can have the game even begin to make sense otherwise. I guess if I did this, I might make it fairly difficult for him to connect. And I guess I don't want to collect this yet, so I'll just put a meeple here. Of course, I just gave his abbot a bunch of points. Yeah. I think you just are going to have to find the right zoom. It does pan the screen. Is there anywhere else we would like to potentially play? Of course, now I feel like we're too zoomed in. Guess what we could do is no, I don't want to place it there. Probably just place it here. Or in the back half of this round. $20 for him, 20 for me. Squirrely. Put that there. And place that there. Probably fine to leave the abbot. I'd say you can see here there's not a huge like synergy or interaction between starting with the river expansion and playing the abbot. The abbot is its own separate thing. The river is basically a way to start the rounds a little bit differently. And that's it. Is there anything we possibly could become a part of? Just stick that there and then put this here, and then I have an insurance policy if they become connected. But they probably won't be. And this is too zoomed in. Although this might not be too zoomed in if you were playing with 2 or 3 people. Okay. This is where you'd want to play. There really is no benefit in holding on to the meeples. So I should have just put one down. And that's the last tile. It feels like it's very possible you don't get a guaranteed number of turns either. Seems like some players may get 1 extra turn just because there's 1 extra tile left. Since there's no rules that say you can skip a turn or draw extra tiles, yeah, based on the number of players you start with, it seems like that could be unbalanced, but maybe it isn't. Maybe the actual rules, which go into more details and say every player starts with 6 tiles, so for every player you start with that much. Or maybe the total number of tiles always is divisible by 6, 5, 4, 3, and 2, which would be kind of a tall order, but potentially doable. I definitely do not enjoy hearing the running water sound effect the whole time. That's gonna send people running to the toilet. Like that really could have been a sound effect that would have just played as you were placing down the river and then stopped. I guess you could mute that, but you'd have to mute all the sound effects. I'm somehow maintaining a lead here, but I don't have a ton of faith that I'm going to hold on to that lead. There it goes. Yep. Second to last. So these graphics are so big that there's not even enough room here. As far as roads, I tied for first as roads. As far as monasteries, I did not as bad as the first guy, but pretty bad otherwise. I guess I'm somewhere in the middle there. As far as gardens, I did pretty poor, but a couple of them didn't do anything with gardens. As far as cities, I am somewhere in the middle. And then fields, I totally boned it up, but clearly this first person managed to get the big bonus in the field. If you subtracted 30 from this field, he would have only been at 38, which would have put me still in like 3rd place. But had I potentially gotten even 3 points for a field, and there were 3 meeples that I didn't place, I would have potentially won if this guy hadn't gotten the fields. Yeah, there's fairly obviously some concepts and some home rules that you could add to a game like Carcassonne, besides just selling new tile sets, to add some variety to it and make it a more strategic experience, whereas the basic rules makes it too random. And notice the ranking and karma is not changing at all because I'm not playing online, and I assume karma probably is a system specifically just to show if you rage quit or quit early, which would be, I imagine, the only thing they really have to control other than maybe moderating the chat. Yep. Remember, there is Steam chat too, so it's weird that there's in-game chat. Like, Steam chat exists. Voice chat exists. Steam can even do, like, text chat. I think it can even do video chat. I don't, maybe it can't, but I wouldn't be surprised if at some point it does do something like that. So while that wouldn't be cross chat with the cell phone versions of the game, and clearly they need crossplay and cross chat just to have any kind of player base. Yep. You have to point out 200 people online really highlights that, unlike something like chess, where I imagine there's at least somewhere around 60 or 70,000 people that play chess fairly regularly, to have an online service that can barely get 200 people is laughable. Anyways, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.